Ji, Assalamu alaikum. So today is the morning or the afternoon after the night before, still recovering from Pakistan's unnecessary loss in that final T20 against England. लेकिन मैंने सोचा मैं आज एक वीडियो बनाऊं क्योंकि मैं कुछ डेटा देख रहा था और उसमें मुझे ये लर्न करने को मिला कि Misbahs record in T20s is devastatingly poor. If we look at Pakistan's record since his tenure as head coach against England, New Zealand, and Australia, played 22, won only 3, and lost 15, with the others being either draws or no results in all formats of the game. So T20s, ODIs, and Tests. And that simply is not good enough. For me, the writing is on the wall. We must part ways with Misbah Haq, regardless of what happens on this West Indies tour. We're going to be playing India, we're going to be playing New Zealand in our group. We know that already in this World Cup. And frankly speaking, his predecessor, yani ke our previous coach, क्या नाम था उनका Mickey Arthur, of course. So Mickey Arthur's record is far superior. In fact, Mickey Arthur had an amazing winning streak in T20s, and it's a T20 World Cup year, and there's potentially a T20 World Cup next year as well. So it's very, very important that Pakistan really have their focus on T20s, because when you're playing against India, when you're playing in the World Cup, failure for the Pakistani nation is simply not something that we can let go. It's not so much about, oh, you know what, boys played well. No, it's about, boys, why didn't you make at least the semi-finals? If not, why did you not win it? The expectations are always high. Pakistan are a very good tournament team, and it just looks like, based on the track record, that Misbah is not getting the best out of this team. We know that this team can compete, but there are some ludicrous selection decisions being made. There are some really bad strategic decisions being made. We've seen that in this series already in England. We've seen a snapshot of it. And can we really trust this management and this leadership to really take us to the World Cup and really give us a solid platform with some consistent wins against the best teams in the world? Don't trust them to not make any ludicrous or haphazard decisions. I'm afraid the answer to that currently is no. So I think the end is near for Misbah Haq. But rather than just coming here and making this an anti-Misbah video, which this is not really meant to be an anti-Misbah video, maybe we can look at his tenure in a bit more detail in a separate video. I really wanted to come up with 5 potential options for who might end up replacing him. Yes, so this video is like 5 potential replacements who can come and कौन पाकिस्तान को कोच कर सकता है, who can take over the leadership, कौन हमें वर्ल्ड कप potentially जिता सकता है, who can get us playing the right brand of T20 cricket in 2021, कौन हमारे बैट्समैन को समझा सकता है क्या स्ट्रेटेजिक अप्रोच लेनी चाहिए, क्या मेंटल अप्रोच लेनी चाहिए, क्या पावर प्ले में अप्रोच लेनी चाहिए, और कौन इनको सिखा सकता है कि भाई आप अपनी प्लेस के लिए मत खेलें, आप पाकिस्तान की जीत के लिए खेलें, और अगर ये आप कर सकते हैं तो इंशाल्लाह आपका करियर ज़्यादा बुलंदी पर जाएगा और आप स्टार भी बनेंगे और आप इंशाल्लाह अच्छी परफॉर्मेंसेस भी देंगे और you'll have a long tenure and inshallah get better recognition by the country and hopefully a good central contract for a long period of time as well. So the 5th option, this is in no order, मैं सिर्फ आपको 5 candidates दे रहा हूँ, आप मुझे ज़रूर comments में बताइएगा who you think are the better options in your opinion. Maybe I've missed somebody out, but let's go for the 5 that I've come up with. So the first option that I have, or 5, if you want to go from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5, तो 5 में मैं कहूँगा Abdul Razzaq. Abdul Razzaq is a Pakistani legend with white ball cricket. He was a solid hitter. He looks like the good sort of profile of an individual and a cricketer, with great coaching experience this year, having led KPK to 3 victories in the Pakistani domestic sort of tournaments this year, whether it was the Qaid-e-Azam National Trophy, which I think they shared with Central Punjab, but also the National One Day Cup and the National T20. So KPK had an absolute clean sweep this year domestically in Pakistan, and it was Razzaq's first season. And he looks like he is a very good man manager. He can get the best out of his players and really guide a team to victory as well. So Abdul Razzaq would definitely be a strong candidate for me as a potential replacement. The only criticism or maybe things that go against him is that he's not very well experienced. He's not also that detached from the individuals in this team, considering he didn't stop playing too long ago. So yes, it's a new generation and he's one generation before, lekin there are probably crossovers from players that he had encountered during his last days as an international cricketer, and sometimes that overlap can cause sort of conflicts. And perhaps an even bigger issue with Abdul Razzaq is his newfound sort of comic persona, where, you know, he has made some very distasteful comments that have sort of distracted away from his cricketing ability and really shown him in a light that's not going to be very popular. So I think it's a shame for Pakistani cricket if he has cost himself the opportunity to become Pakistan's head coach by making some very ill-timed and misguided remarks. And I think he should really reflect on his media persona and what he's doing, because ultimately Pakistan could really do with some guidance and some coaching from somebody of his class and experience. So Yichis, I don't want to brush it under the rug. It's all in the media. You can go and see what he has said and what was considered to be distasteful. However, just based on cricketing ability, and obviously if we can overcome and make sure that he sort of realizes his shortcomings in the media with his newfound persona, then maybe he is a good option. Chalo, who else can we have potentially to replace Misbah should the board decide to go a separate way? So another option we have is Gary Kirsten. Yes, Gary Kirsten was the coach for India when they won their World Cup. Now that might actually rule him out. I'm not sure how the Pakistani media or the institutions within Pakistan or the fan base will really warm to an individual who, has taken India to the highest of summits. But he is an Indian, he's of course South African, very well respected coach, very well respected player, has coached South Africa in the middle as well, has had great success in franchise cricket as well, just genuinely somebody who is considered to be one of the leading coaches in world cricket, although he has been a little bit out of the game in recent years. But I still think that would be a potential opportunity for Pakistan to bring in somebody of his experience and maybe just go slightly in a different direction. Whereas Mickey Arthur was someone who had quite a strong personality. We've of course got Misbah, who's obviously likes a little bit of a dictatorship. When he is in command, we've obviously had the Waqar era, but Gary Kirsten is a slightly different personality. Whether or not he can bring out the best in the Pakistani team is something that you guys need to try and tell me what you think. But he is a viable option, at least based on his resume and his abilities to coach white ball teams to win tournaments, as he did with India back in 2011. Now, who else is there? So another option, and you might say, oh, why is this even an option? What I'm going to say is Mickey Arthur. Yes, I know Mickey Arthur left only in 2019, but just hear me out here. Mickey Arthur was somebody who coached Australia. It didn't go very well with them. He came to Pakistan, and there did seem to be some improvements with regards to our T20 record. We went on a really good run of T20 series victories. He got the team playing good cricket, positive cricket. He ushered in the sort of new era of T20 batting. Even one-day internationals, we were able to score totals above 300 more regularly under him. Our fielding started to improve. And I know we had a poor World Cup, but, that was a pretty tight World Cup and there was a little bit of rain around it. I think it was the opening game against West Indies, which ultimately meant that we didn't qualify for the semis. So I think that it was a little bit harsh for him to lose his job when he did. But more importantly, I think that somebody who has been able to have a very good win-to-loss ratio in T20 cricket might just be somebody who we need right now leading into a World Cup later on this year in 2021, and maybe again next year in 2022, as last year's Australian World Cup has been postponed. So we might have two T20 World Cups over the next 2 years, and we need somebody who knows the Pakistani setup very, very well. And also, what we really want is somebody who can get the best out of our T20 players and hopefully lead us to victory in these formats. So yes, I think Mickey Arthur might be able to make some sort of a comeback into Pakistani cricket, although I'm not so sure how popular a choice he would be, considering the players have already worked under him. It didn't work out the first time around. We weren't successful in the 2019 World Cup. If he was to be unsuccessful, it would seem like a very backward step by Pakistani cricket, and we should really be thinking about moving forward. So whether or not Mickey Arthur can take the job, I don't know. Put it in the comments. Tell me what you think. But I think that he is a viable candidate when it comes to considering who might actually become Pakistan's next head coach should Misbahs Record move on. The next person that I have in mind is Darren Lehmann. Now, Darren Lehmann took over the Australian cricket team at a time when I think Mickey Arthur had actually left them. So they were in a lot of trouble. They weren't performing to the best of their abilities. They had a very weak Australian cricketing side, and he took them and brought them to the Ashes in England, and I think they ended up losing that series, but they started to show some fight, and he helped rebuild Australia to the extent where they became a good fighting unit, started to get better results in the Ashes, started competing again in white ball cricket on an international level. And generally speaking, Lehmann is somebody who's always defied the odds. He was always a bit of an ugly cricketer, never really somebody who, fit in very well in that lineup where you had the Gilchrist, the Mark Wars, the Steve Wars, leading that mighty Australian team in the late 90s and early 2000s. But Lehmann was a big part of that team. He was a fighter. His stats were very good. He grinded out the performances that Australia very well needed. And so he might be somebody who Pakistan could really benefit from, because right now something that's lacking in this Pakistani setup is definitely a little bit of resilience, and definitely that is something that Lehmann has a good track record as a player and as a coach with the Australian cricket team. And also, he doesn't look like or come across like the kind of guy that will take a lot of nonsense. He in fact resigned after the ball tampering scandals in Australia. So he is somebody who, ultimately has had a little bit of a checkered past with regards to what has happened under his leadership. But sometimes I feel we need a little bit of an abrasive personality. His coaching credentials are clearly not in question. लेकिन क्या पाकिस्तान एक ऐसे कोच को ला सकते हैं who can really put the cats amongst the pigeons, as they might say, and really clean up the sort of system in Pakistan and really get the best out of players and really put in a very Australian approach. We know Australia has a very good history of sports science, things like diet, things like exercise regimes, things like batting strategy, things like performance on the field with regards to your physical abilities, your pace at which you run, your fitness levels, your sort of stamina levels. These are the kinds of things that an Australian coach can definitely bring to the table. So Darren Lehmann, a little bit of an outside shot, but definitely somebody who is out of work right now, but could end up being a potential good candidate for Pakistan. तो अगर Darren Lehmann आ भी जाते हैं तो मेरे ख्याल से काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग दिन आ सकते हैं पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट के लिए, लेकिन I think he is a bit more of a left field choice. And then the final candidate who I want to talk about, who might end up replacing Misbahs Record, and some say he's the favorite. Some people said back 2 months ago that this guy was already guaranteed a job straight after the PSL. That hasn't materialized. But yes, I am talking about Andy Flower. Now, Andy Flower is somebody of a very, very credible background. Of course, his role with Zimbabwe cricket as a player can never, ever be forgotten. One of their greatest players, in fact, a good wicketkeeper, very good batsman, a good captain as well when he did lead them. And then, of course, what he achieved with England with regards to the Ashes in terms of rebuilding the England team, and then eventually going into the management setup before I think he got ill and then had to sort of leave his positions. So Andy Flower has actually worked in Pakistan cricket. I know his brother has also worked in Pakistan cricket in the domestic setups. I think he's managed a franchise in the PSL. So he knows Pakistani cricket very well. Zimbabwe and Pakistan cricket have also shared good relations in the past, and he seems like the ideal candidate. But my only concern with someone like Andy Flower is he will take no nonsense. He took a stand against the Mugabe regime back during the 99 World Cup, and I remember they wore the black armband and the death of democracy. So a person like that who can stand up to a dictator on the international front is definitely not somebody who is going to take a lot of nonsense. And we know that Pakistani cricket can have a lot of drama within the PCB, overhauls going on, player dynamics, star power, captain power. So can Pakistan really sustain a coach like Andy Flower in the long run? We don't want him to come and have a sort of good time as a sort of retirement job. The Pakistan job is a big job in world cricket. It's a very difficult job, maybe the most difficult job in world cricket. The expectations here are very, very high. Andy Flower, I personally think there might be a bit of a cultural conflict. I'm not so sure how he'll get on with his bosses at the PCB. I'm not so sure how he will really respond to Pakistani culture, and I'm really not sure how he'll be able to communicate his ideas very well with the Pakistani players. Lekin, he is considered to be a front runner, so do not be surprised if his name is being thrown around by many more experienced people than myself as being a leading candidate to replace Misbahs Record. So there you go, guys. There are 5 potential people who might end up replacing Misbahs Record. There are a couple of left field options, some that I would be excited by, such as maybe a Wasim Akram or a Shane Warne, because these guys, especially if you look at Wasim Akram, he's had some coaching experience in franchise cricket, has also coached in the IPL, has been successful with Karachi Kings after the demise of Dean Jones, and really Pakistan need to utilize their legends, and Wasim Akram really has never been part of the PCB setup. And I hear all this nonsense that, oh, Wasim doesn't want to coach Pakistan or be head coach because, you know, the money's not good enough and he prefers his lifestyle working as a commentator and an analyst and somebody who can work on an ad hoc basis and not have to commit. Well, I think that's nonsense. I think Wasim Akram has a lot to offer Pakistani cricket. He's got a lot to offer Pakistani bowlers. He's probably our best white ball captain that we've ever had. He's probably our best white ball bowler that we've ever had. So to not really take advantage of somebody as important as Wasim Akram would definitely be a chance missed. Although there are, of course, issues that need to be overcome owing to his past. But we won't get into all of that. But it would be an interesting choice. Similarly, someone like Shane Warne, clearly somebody who has had success in T20 cricket as captain, as coach within the IPL setup, considered to be Australia's greatest captain that they never actually had. Just a great cricketing brain, a legend and an icon of the game. Absolutely not sure how he would settle into a Pakistani climate. Can't really see him moving and living in Lahore. Can't really see him living anywhere in Pakistan, if I'm very honest with you. So I think that that's probably not going to happen. Lekin, he would be a great, great choice. And sometimes I just feel Pakistan end up having to compromise on who they pick as their head coach. And the thing that I want to emphasize is, well, this should never happen. Pakistan and Pakistani cricket is one of the biggest institutions in the entire world. It's one of the biggest supported teams in the entire world. We need to start not compromising on important selections and what can be more important than the head coach of Pakistan. If we end up having the right people on the top, hopefully their ideas can start to filter down the rest of the Pakistani cricketing setup and we can see some actual change from top down. Of course, there are also changes that need to be made at grassroots level so we get a bottom-up change, and I know that the government is trying its hardest to try and bring some changes there. Lekin, I want a coach that Pakistan can be proud of. I want a successful coach. We won the World Cup in '92. We won the World Cup again in 2009, albeit the T20 World Cup. But let me be very honest with you, not many people even remember who our coach was. And so write down in the comments if you do remember who our coach was at that time, and let's meet again in our next video. Thanks.